My name is Marcy Timmerman. I am the Executive Director of Mental Health America of Kentucky. I have the privilege of leading the Bell podcast, of which this webinar is part of the series. Some of our series is supported by the Department of Behavioral Health, but this is not one because we were talking about some really interesting things in advocacy. So I wanted to make sure it's clear that this is completely us funding this one. So happy to have Whitney Austin with me of Whitney Strong. It's a wonderful nonprofit. I will actually share their webpage for just a moment with you all so you can see what I'm talking about. I think you can see. This is the wonderful webpage of whitneystrong.org. They do have a Capitol Day, February 9th at the state capitol from 8:30 to 2. You'll probably hear about it several times today, I hope. We will be recording this event. Audio will be put into our podcast. The video will be put on YouTube at our YouTube page. And thank you again, Whitney, for joining us and to agreeing for all of that recording, because that's really scary for some people. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Whitney, tell me a little bit about Whitney Strong and kind of where it came from and how it started.
Yeah, so I was a former banker, worked at Fifth Third Bank, had almost 16 years in that profession and had every intention to just keep doing banking. I loved every bit of it. I managed our unsecured lending portfolio. But on one day, which was September 2018, my life changed forever. I thought I was checking into corporate headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio to work on unsecured lending. And instead, I walked into a mass shooting that had erupted minutes before I arrived onto the square. And instead of having any bit of situational awareness, I did not. And I was on a conference call talking about unsecured lending, and I just blindly walked into all of it, so much so that as soon as I pushed on the revolving door to go into the building, I was hit by the first barrage of bullets across my chest and across my upper body. And as I collapsed to the ground with the force of it all, just trying to comprehend what was happening to me, my brain immediately went to, these are bullets. Nobody is close enough to me for this to be anything other than bullets. And if these are bullets, I must be in a mass shooting because I've read about this. I pay attention to this. I worry about this. That is actually what is happening to me right now. And there wasn't a lot of time to sit there in shock. For me, I thought immediately of my little kids and my husband and how I had to survive. I had to get out of that situation and get back to them. But I wasn't strong enough to get up and run because my arms were too badly damaged to even push myself off of the ground. I looked out onto Fountain Square and there wasn't a soul to be seen. Nobody could rescue me. And then I tried to move my arm once again to get back to my phone, which didn't work because it was really just a dummy arm at that point. It was so badly injured. And so I couldn't call 911. And even worse, I indicated to the shooter that I was still alive. So then the next barrage of bullets came across my body. And, that was it. In my lifetime thus far, the most devastating moment I've ever experienced. I was coughing up blood and I thought I have no options for survival. And so I made my peace with God and thought that was the end. But then on a dime, the Cincinnati Police Department arrived. They did everything exactly the way they were supposed to. They had previously trained for these moments. I got the very best of them. And they came in like the heroes that they are. And they saved me. And they were able to save one other gentleman who was wounded on that day. And so fast forward quite a bit, I end up in the hospital at University of Cincinnati. And the doctors and the nurses are all staring at me. And they say, you were shot 12 times. But not once did any of those bullets hit any major organs or arteries. You are a miracle. And so, yeah, that day changed my life. And I knew immediately, alongside my husband, that I couldn't go back to the old life of banking, that I had to do something to make sure that nobody else experienced this type of trauma. And of course, it's happened hundreds of times since, and thousands of times when you expand the definition and you include all forms of gun violence. But I'm here for this issue. I'm sticking with it. And I want to do whatever I can to make progress on it. So that's how Whitney Strong started. And you're on mute, Marcy. Marcy, did you hear me? You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to mute to be nice in case, outside noise. But no, thank you. And honestly, every time I hear your story, it gets you get better at telling it, but I also get more emotional. So, yeah, folks, that probably should have come with a disclaimer. I'll probably put that in the YouTube video part. Because yeah, it's pretty serious, right? And we are seeing too many of these tragedies. And so you formed Whitney Strong. It's a nonprofit, right? In order
Mhm.
to push what? What is the mission of the organization other than
So, the mission of Whitney Strong is finding common ground to end gun violence through data driven, responsible gun ownership solutions. We are a 501(c)(3), and I hope that mission conveys several things. First and foremost, common ground. I can remember sitting in the hospital and being overwhelmed with the love and support from friends and strangers all across the spectrum, gun owners and non gun owners, Republicans and Democrats. It was a unified message that this is unacceptable and we must do something to prevent this from happening again. So,
Mhm.
my husband and I, knew from the very beginning that we were going to be on the side of bringing people together because that is the only way to make progress. And we did not want to stand still. Also, I hope that people hear data driven and tie me back to my history of banking. So many of the decisions I made in banking were based upon numbers.
Mhm.
And I've carried that forward with me in the work of Whitney Strong. It really is a great way to move forward in an objective way. And then lastly, responsible gun ownership. My husband and I always share that we are gun owners. There are many gun owners on our board, many gun owners who support Whitney Strong. We are not anti-gun. This is about being responsible with your firearm if you so choose to be a firearm owner. And so Whitney Strong, in a more practical way, has three areas of focus. We do work in education, which is all community based. These are trainings that you can take to improve the safety of your community. So, individually, what can we do to make things better? We
Mhm.
also focus on research, knowing that there's a huge deficit of research on the subject matter. So, what studies can we do to be better with our trainings in the community, or what studies can we do to be better educated when we speak to elected officials? And then the last area of focus for us is legislation, and that is picking policies that we believe stand a chance at passage. And in order to do that, one, we make sure that they're rooted in evidence. So if we're going to do something, it needs to work. And secondly, that we have bipartisan support. So to me, that means a lot of things. Quite literally, it means that every bill has a Republican and a Democratic sponsor team working together to get to the best solution. But it also means that we're moving forward with solutions that have the support of both major political parties. And one, that's important because we truly believe that you get to the best solutions when you consider both sides of the coin. And secondly, based upon the political makeup of the state in Kentucky, it's really important that you do pursue bipartisan solutions. So that's, in a nutshell, education, research, and legislation.
Awesome. I'm assuming some of those individual trainings we can find on your website.
Yes. So the way that Focus works, it's called Save a Life. The way it works today is it is offered in Louisville, Kentucky, and Cincinnati, Ohio only. And in each city, 5 specific neighborhoods based upon data, those neighborhoods that have had the highest homicide levels. We offer stop the bleed training, QPR for suicide prevention, sources of strength for suicide prevention, and firearm safety instruction. We picked those because, again, when you think about the holistic viewpoint of what gun violence is, those trainings really get at the heart of prevention. And we've chosen those neighborhoods because they are more on fire than other neighborhoods in both cities. But I certainly hope that as our organization grows over time, that we can find new target areas. For example, next on the list is to go into the neighborhoods and eventually counties in Kentucky and Ohio that have the highest levels of suicide by firearm. So I want Save a Life to be offered to everyone, but at this early stage in our organization, we're prioritizing those who need it most.
That makes total sense. Thanks for explaining a little bit better. Because I was like, oh, where did I get that? 'Cause you know me.
And if you are not in one of those neighborhoods, you can absolutely participate. And as you participate as a volunteer, you too will get trained. So, feel free to go to whitneystrong.org, sign up as a volunteer under Get Involved, and we'd be happy to have you participate, help us set up and take down those events, and also get trained while you're there.
That's awesome. So yeah, so on the slate for this year is it's a big year in 2023. For those of you who are not familiar already, I don't think we've talked about the legislature yet. The legislative makeup in 2023 is very different than it was last year. We have 33 new members coming in, I was told. So it's between 31 and 33, depending on who you talk to. Lots of new people to educate. So about all kinds of issues, including mental health issues. And for those of you listening to us and you're like, well, why is Whitney on with MHA? What is this? I want to explain a little bit that we very strongly support the legislation that Whitney has brought to 2023. It's a recurring bill, hasn't passed yet, but it always has that strong bipartisan support. And following our path, we definitely need that evidence base, right? We talk about evidence based in our mission. Data driven is exactly it. Evidence informed might be the better way these days, but it is all the jargon, right? What it really means is we know it works or we know that it should work, right? Depending on what the mechanisms are. And then the bill that she is going to tell us a little bit more about, it's the CARR bill. It's CAR, C.A.R.R. And I will have her explain what it means because I always mess it up. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about that legislation and what we're looking for in 2023. From an MHA standpoint, firearm deaths are predominantly suicide and or murder. So we need to fix that, right? And our suicide rates are very strong in Kentucky, unfortunately, and growing a little bit, despite our very much the growth in 988 that we see, which is wonderful. And if for those of you listening who don't know what 988 is, it is the hotline to call if you are feeling suicidal, or if you're having any kind of mental health crisis, or if you're with someone who is having a mental health crisis. It's not a physical health crisis. If someone is overdosing, this is not the number to call. That's still 911. But otherwise, you can call 988 and get connected to services that are appropriate for you. So there's the commercial for 988. Sorry about that, Whitney. Whenever I say it, I want to make sure people understand what it is just because it's still so new. But one of the big things about this gun conversation that we have nationally is the fact that we don't do enough prevention, but we also don't do enough postvention. So we'll talk a little bit about that later, Whitney, as far as an MHA kind of thought process. I'm sure you've had a lot of postvention yourself because you are doing so well these days. But anyway, let's get back to CAR. Can you explain a little bit about what the legislation is and kind of how it came about and where it stands for this session?
Yes. So I always start with how it is connected to my personal story. When I came back home from Cincinnati's from the hospital, I didn't have any idea what solutions we would pursue. We're going to do something.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And I knew nothing about legislation at all. I mean, I didn't know who my state senator, representative was, what it takes to make a bill law, real clueless. And Senator McGarvey turned out to be my state senator. And I had a mutual connection to him, and she suggested, well, why don't I bring Senator McGarvey over and we can have a conversation? And he was the very first visitor that we had outside of my very dear friend who had come to live with us for about a week to just help. Um, and so he saw me at the very worst and came over with a pile of paperwork, essentially, well, readings, and said, why don't you go through this and decide if there's something in here that you think would have made a difference in your shooting or something you think could make a difference, period, for gun violence. And I'll be there to help you. You just tell me which direction you want to go in. So that was obviously a very positive and generous experience. And I took his instruction seriously. And so spent a lot of time reading through the different policies that were out there. And I kept coming back to the concept of risk warrant laws. They're often referred to as extreme risk protection orders or red flag laws for a number of reasons. Back to that evidence-based, there were a good number of studies attached to them that showed anywhere between 10 to 20 orders led to saving one life from suicide. I also had read about several studies that showed this law was effective in preventing mass violence incidents in the state of California. And so that checked the box. And then as I transitioned to, okay, well, politically, who supports this? I was able to find a handful of US government Republicans and Democrats that were supportive of extreme risk protection orders or risk warrant laws. And then also, I found a report from the US School Safety Commission, which had just been published. And it showed not only did, the rank and file members of the federal legislative team get on board, some of them, there was actually an endorsement from President Trump himself. And so that was enough for me to recognize this is getting bipartisan support. It's rooted in evidence. And then lastly, this could have been used to prevent what happened to me. Now, there's no way to say that with complete certainty in the same way that you likely can't say that with any piece of legislation, but there were warning signs, and had the tool been available, someone could have utilized it. So I really started to become fixated on this piece of policy, that this is what I wanted to do. But I knew enough to know that it was not going to make progress with Senator McGarvey alone. So I went about the work of trying to meet and build relationships with Republicans in the state Senate. And then came along my dear friend now, former Senator Paul Hornbeck from Shelbyville. He just retired this last year. And we really built a relationship and bonded over the importance of protecting the Second Amendment, but also recognizing that gun violence is different than it once was, and that we have a responsibility to keep people safe. Keep people safe when they go to work, when they go to groceries, when they send their kids to school. Mm-hmm. And so he joined on as, the tag team effort in all of this. And we moved from there. I'm sure I could keep going on the timeline of where we were back then and where we are now, but I'll stop and explain what the bill is, because that's probably one thing that may be lost on people. So the way these risk warrant laws work is really all in the same vein. The concept is this: a gun owner is facing a crisis moment, whether it's self-harm with suicide, or it is to harm others, oftentimes for mass violence purposes, or there's overlap between the two, that you are both suicidal and you are looking to commit an act of mass violence. And what these laws allow for is an opportunity for pressing pause, legal intervention to temporarily transfer the firearm away from that person so that they can get back to a place in which gun ownership is safe. And the reason that's important, it is not criminal, it is entirely civil. The reason that is important is because crisis moments don't last forever. And given the right support, you can definitely get someone to a place in which gun ownership is safe again. We should not say that if you were suicidal for one moment, that therefore you lose your right to a firearm.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
when you really start to think about the number of gun owners in crisis moments and really the lack of solutions to help them, you can very quickly get to, all right, I see why this works. I see why providing a legal path to temporarily transfer that firearm and getting the gun owner the help they need could really be a positive experience for that gun owner.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the devil's in the details sometimes, isn't it? Getting those things passed. And Kentucky's CARR law is not the same as every other red flag law, and I think that's important too. They're all a little bit different in the details and those micro moments inside of them. And I really appreciate the work you've done with the legislation here to stay evidence informed, evidence based, and data driven because some of them are trying to put mental health where it doesn't belong, right? And sometimes yeah, suicide might be a factor, some other issues may be a factor, but we can't evaluate whether or not someone is safe for a firearm. There's just no mental health evaluation for that. And I know that Whitney has learned about that, and we have really been strong about that. So we want to be clear with folks that the process is civil for a reason, and it should stay within the court. I know that's always been a contentious issue sometimes with that bill here in Kentucky, but it is important, right? That there's just no evidence, there's no way for a mental health professional to identify someone officially. Right, whether or not they're safe, but we can deal with the things that are happening. Say, and after a gun is removed, we can work with suicidal folks, right, to make them not suicidal. Doesn't have to be, and I do think there is that myth still that you mentioned suicide doesn't have to be because you're suicidal in the moment, doesn't mean you're suicidal forever. And I think a lot of folks don't recognize that or don't understand that. It's something that maybe we misunderstood for decades and generations, I think. So wanting to put that out there into this conversation as well, that, just one moment of crisis of any kind of mental health issue doesn't necessarily label you for your lifetime. Right. We have lots of excellent therapies, even medications that even, short-term treatment, it doesn't turn into lifetime treatment for everyone. So being clear about the hopefulness of something like this in a recovery process, I think is really important from our point of view. So I wanted to kind of underline those points just to be safe and clear where we sit on this issue. So, but where is the legislation going this year? Do we know yet if it's going to be filed? Does it have a bill number yet? It's okay if it doesn't.
Well, it hasn't been filed yet. We've been working hard on some updates. There's not a year that has passed yet. And I guess technically this is the fourth year working on it, where we haven't made changes to the language to make it more custom for Kentucky. Like I always give this example. Several years ago, we wrote in that the firearm doesn't have to be temporarily transferred to law enforcement, which is pretty traditional outside of Kentucky. We would allow for a non cohabitating family member to petition the court to also be the one to safely store it. So that's a good example for people that can recognize that there are high valued guns in the state of Kentucky, and
Mhm.
it would make the gun owner feel just better about the situation if they knew that it was being safely stored with someone that
Mhm.
they love, that someone has their best intentions at heart. And so anyway, we've got some more changes to make to the language, and then we will decide when it makes sense to file it and what makes sense for our next step. I always say that my next big goal is to have a hearing during session. We had an interim session hearing or an interim session hearing. Yeah, that's right. Which was great. It led to a lot of good dialogue and changes to the language. But we really reached a point right now where we need to have another conversation about something you brought up, which includes at what point does mental health play a role in all of this. You've said it well. We try really hard to educate people that crisis moments happen for a whole host of reasons, and there are many factors that contribute to them. And so sometimes mental health is playing a role in those crisis moments. Sometimes it's not. And so, in the instance that mental health is playing a role in the crisis, what can we do to get that person to the help they need to get better? And if mental health is not playing a role, there are other support services they could benefit from. How do we get them to those experts? We have a ad campaign that's been running over the course of the last 4 months in partnership with Sandy Hook Promise, who is our national partner on all of this work. And the ad says it best. One of them says, gun owners helping gun owners. That's the whole point of this. I don't know why you're in the crisis moment. I don't know why all of the factors exist, but we want to help you. We want to help you not take this step of harm. And so that's what's behind really where we are now, making sure that we have the language right and that we know our next steps. And Marcy, as soon as we know, you'll know, and you can.
I figured it hadn't gotten quite to that bill, which is great, actually. Good news. Yeah. And with all of those new folks, yes, definitely an in-session committee hearing would be amazing. So I will plug for that as well. If any of our legislators are listening and are leaders of those appropriate committees, we would love to bring it up. I think it'd be great to hear from more about it and honestly see these tweaks and understand where they came from. And for those who are listening who are maybe not as familiar with the process, tweaking language is very common in Kentucky, and it can take years for bills to happen. It takes that persistence for bills to come through. It's very rare that something comes up the first year and gets approved right away. The language, there's always little things we miss, typos, errors, things like that, even not necessarily even big details every single session. So just keep that in mind. As far as an advocacy side of things, persistence is what wins. And that willingness that Whitney and others in her team bring to work with everyone. I think that is something that Mental Health America tries to do nationally and definitely here in the state as well. We have many friends in many committees from different parties, and I think that's important too to mention. Just about the process itself, because folks probably don't know that who are listening, a lot of them. So some of them are experts, some are not, right, in this space. And it's a very unique space. So thanks so much, Whitney, for that explanation. And yes, anyone who wants to know more about MHAs, Hate is Not a Mental Illness campaign is really about explaining, the differences between mental wellness, mental illness issues, and all of that in these complicated situations. It's a little higher level than I have dug so far into that, but that is available at nmhanational.org. If you look up Hate is Not a Mental Illness, you'll find more information on where we stand as far as an organization on what needs to be done. And I kind of gave you a little bit from our point of view, right? There is just no standard to be met. But I love that this is a civil case, by the way. I love that about this legislation. For those who are not familiar, that means this will not be a criminal record. Just because you see a judge and police officers doesn't mean that it has to be anything, criminal. It doesn't have to follow you for the rest of your life. And I think that's really important too. To note, as we look at this kind of legislation, that's a big part of it, right? Is that it's pretty private, and that it's almost voluntary, not necessarily, but there are mechanisms for this to happen in a supportive way. I think that's really what I mean. So it is really important. It's important legislation, and it's just the start of things, I hope, of these conversations in Kentucky where we can support one another. I think none of us wants, school shootings to happen here again, right? It's already happened twice, actually a little bit more than that, I think, by the data. So the data is actually hard to find. And I love that Whitney is there for that conversation as well as we start talking with the executive branch. Advocacy doesn't always mean a bill. A lot of it can be meetings with those people who get that data, who fund the data, who collect the data but can't share it because of the laws about it. So there are lots of things we are doing behind the scenes as well together. I hope together. So to make sure that we change the world a little bit, right? And make this a safer place, because I think that's the benefit of everybody. So but Whitney,
And on the note of data, I was just going to share, because I hadn't pulled it up in about a month, and therefore the numbers were not on the tip of my tongue.
That's okay.
But
Mhm.
um, we had in 2020, which is the most recent CDC data that we can pull, in the state of Kentucky, there were 902 gun deaths in 2020, and 518 of them were suicide, and 331 of them were homicide. The rest, which is a small number, would be accidents or um, not enough information to classify them one way or another. So 902, that breaks down to about every 17 hours, someone is dying of suicide by firearm in our state. And so, really, this legislation stands to save one life every single day. So, I think it's really important for people to be armed with data, and make sure that when it comes to the conversations that you have, elected officials or just regular everyday Kentuckians, do you know this is how big the problem is? This is how many people we're losing to suicide every year, and also to know that mostly suicides occur disproportionately in our rural areas. The
Mhm.
opposite is true of homicides. So, the way I see it, this entire state has a vested interest in trying to reduce gun violence.
Well said and very true. And yeah, I think that's an important point for us to walk away with. That's a great one.
And
Also,
Marcy, I wanted to talk about Car Capital Day. Sorry, that was the
yeah,
only
no,
other
that's
thing
fine.
I
I was gonna
didn't
get to
share.
that. Sorry, I wasn't trying to wrap it.
Yeah.
It sounded like I was.
Okay.
My brain is not on today. Sorry, folks. Yeah, Whitney, let's talk about the Capitol Day and kind of what that looks like, and even just kind of sketch out the day for us a little bit. Again. Mhm.
Yeah, so this will be our second annual Car Capital Day. We're finally, knock on wood, past the early COVID days and we can all be together. So we were excited last year to have a good group of supporters there. Would love for you to attend with us.
Definitely.
We will kick off the day at 9 a.m. We will start with a mini training to make sure that you feel prepared to talk about CAR to lawmakers. We don't want to just set anybody free without training. That's a scary situation. And
Mhm.
then once the mini training is over, you will have the opportunity to interact with lawmakers in one of two ways. Either you will meet directly with your elected official, if that meeting can be scheduled, and not alone with a group of people. But then we will also have many of the elected officials who are supportive of CAR address the group. So come in and share their thoughts about where we are at this moment and what comes next. And then we will also have a press conference on that day. So we hope to announce our new bipartisan team of lawmakers that are taking over after Senator McGarvey went off to Congress and Senator Hornback retired. And so that should be an exciting moment that everybody will be able to participate in from the rotunda. So just a full day of making sure that everybody listens to us regarding CAR through the media, and also that lawmakers listen to us in one-on-one interactions.
Yeah. And do you assist people in getting that legislative meeting, or do they need to get that information for
No,
themselves?
we do it all for you. You just need to
Right.
register. So in the same place that Marcy started, going to whitneystrong.org, you will see right there on the homepage, click the button,
Yep.
and it'll take you to sign up. And we will, we're trying to decide yet if we will have transportation from Louisville. Obviously, if you're outside of Louisville, we won't have transportation, but that doesn't mean that there won't be people from outside of Louisville. We do have support outside of Louisville too.
Yeah, they have a big reach actually, and a growing one, which is wonderful. So, if you care about gun violence and sensible gun legislation, this would be a great day to show up in Frankfurt. Your voice does matter, folks. I know that sometimes it feels like it doesn't. You feel like one of million. There's 4 million people in Kentucky, but these legislators get reached out to by 10 or 15 people on an issue. It's huge. If we can get four on an issue, sometimes that's really huge. So especially these no folks, they're not being visited by as many people. So definitely try to get this on your schedule and register for this event. I think it's going to be a great day. I know that it's a great day. I've heard many things from folks who have been at these before, and they say it's a really great day. And I will be there myself. So just sign me up. I will register the way you're supposed to. But yeah, we'll definitely be on site. And if you have questions from the mental health side, I'll be armed with facts and information from our national team as well, so that you'll have some to walk into if you're concerned or confused. Um, but anyway, it's going to be a great day. I think that's exciting. And I love that you have this already scheduled out. Folks concerned about the press conference, folks in the audience don't have to talk to the press if you don't want to. So make sure that that's clear as well. I get some people who are concerned about that always, and it's fine. And all of you with professional credentials, all of the professional organizations in mental health services and medical, actually on both sides of the medical mental health debate, which should be all the same, but that's another day. So they all support these kinds of things from an organizational standpoint. So I want to make sure folks know it's not just us, these little groups talking to each other. It is a national conversation that's had, and it is supported generally by the ethics boards of, say, the Medical Association, Psychological Association, Social Work, all of those folks across the country. So many, many voices coming to the table. It was really what makes these things strong. But we do like to do things different and unique in Kentucky. And so that's why we have our own legislation, right? It's not the same one everybody else has. And I think that's important. And when you meet with your legislators saying, it's been customized for Kentucky, read the thing, figure out what you like and don't like about it, come at it with some fresh eyes. I think it's a really good way to start that conversation, and just really, and like you said, one a day. I can't fathom it. So from a suicide prevention standpoint, this is a really strong issue. And we have to do something, folks, and we might as well start here. So I think this is a great place to be. Whitney, are there any other comments and things that you want to make sure we get in today, and topics, issues?
Well, what you just said, I want to piggyback off of. We are also gathering endorsements. So yes, we have the endorsement from Marcy and the team, but endorsements are, from there all the way to the American Academy of Pediatrics for the state of Kentucky. So if you are an organization that is vested in reducing gun violence in any way, shape, or form, be it mental health, medical, economic, I can go on and on as to why this touches all of us. Please send me an email at whitney@whitstrong.org and let me know that your organization would be interested in learning more to potentially come on as an endorser. We had 17 endorsements last year, and I would like to get us to 2025 and 2023. It really doesn't matter your size. It can be very powerful to receive an endorsement from a small organization, if it's the right small organization. So don't feel as if you are excluded because you don't meet some minimum requirements.
Yeah, I know many voices make a very loud noise. So hopefully that will help as well. So, and we can raise the roof a little on the 9th, which would be wonderful.
That's right.
So.
And individuals do too. So that's why the 9th is so important. And I forgot to mention, if you come, you get a free Whitney Strong t-shirt. So I know that
There you go.
excites people sometimes. Get
Free t-shirts. And if you're worried about where you're sitting for lunch, just find me. We'll sit together. It's fine. So, because I'm very familiar with the cafeteria. It's where a lot of folks land. So, but anyway, it's been great to sit with you, Whitney, and to learn more about this year and the upcoming session. And as well, it's technically in, folks. So for explanation, the session started January 3rd. They were all sworn in. They went in, they got their ethics training, they got their committee assignments and everything like that. Now they're home. So if you want some information on how to talk about it with them while they're home, also reach out to Whitney, because I'm sure she has all the talking points and things from the night that she can share with you, and definitely make sure that you make a connection. Maybe even just congratulate your new legislator on being elected, because a lot of you do have new legislators. So that is one thing we can do moving forward for all of us, for any issue that you have from mental health standpoints, or any other issues, frankly, not just us, but I am me, so I'm gonna plug mental health, right? But and gun safety too, because that is definitely a suicide prevention issue. So if you want to reach them in the next couple of weeks too, ahead of the Capitol Day, please do reach out. And then Capitol Day is February 9th. Don't forget that at whitneystrong.org. And that's awesome. Thank you all so much. If we have any questions from the folks who are on the webinar with us or on Facebook, I'd be happy to take some of those. If anyone's got any, but I'm not seeing a whole lot. And that's okay. That's how these things work in the middle of the day, sister.
Let's see. Come on, find me a question.
She wants a question. She wants the hard stuff now. That's all
I'd like to know what this pinwheel situation is with the 3 people that have joined us.
They're from the same organization. We'll chat about it later
Okay.
because they're not necessarily here representing their org. So
I see. Got
Yep.
it. Well, the pinwheel is pretty.
It is pretty. It's a great logo, y'all. Thanks so much for the information.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up, but Whitney, it's been wonderful to have you. Can you give one more plug for your website and the Capitol Day?
Sure. Go to whitneystrong.org to learn more about our organization and to sign up for Capitol Day, which is February 9th. And I promise you, it will be a great day. There are a lot of surprises in store that I can't even tell you about right now, but you will
Lots of
witness them.
positivity.
You will witness them if you are there. So
Yes. It's not going to be a weepy day. It's going to be an awesome day. So come make a difference. Thank you all so much. And thanks again, Whitney, for being here. And that is a wrap.
right.